Hey, and welcome to the dawn of yet another millennium. Same millennium, yet different timeline. This is The New Order, a new millennium, a sequel to TNO, if that makes sense. A fan's idea of what the world would be like afterwards. I assume it's just a coincidence that this was released so shortly after the Millennium Dawn update released. It seems like this mod has been in development for a while, but I have no clue about the development cycle, so they might as well have just thrown this together in the past 2 to 3 weeks. It's possible, but I'm not so sure. With all the interesting storylines in TNO, there is obviously a lot of interesting stuff that you can make based on those storylines, taking them 30 years into the future, past 1970, where the game really ends for most paths, kind of around there, like 1972-ish for Russian unification, and most paths don't go too far beyond that anyways. The oil crisis is really our ending point, and there are a lot of liberties you can take based on what happens after the oil crisis to what happens before 2000, so this really leaves a lot of options, but this is just a demo, so we can't expect everything just yet. The US has its port cities and Hawaii back, and I think still owns Panama. I don't know how they did it, but impressive. And they're led by Dick Cheney. Japan's empire fell, and they're liberal democracy. I don't know if they're aligned with America. We'll have to see when we get in-game. China's an authoritarian democracy. The French state still exists, and Free France somehow still exists in Africa. I don't know how, but it's a thing. And the Iberian Union is still staying strong. Franco would be proud. Turkey, on the other hand, has fallen, and there's a sort of Straits Authority. The USSR is back. It's somewhat ironic that in the timeline where they lost the Second World War, they survive to the year 2000. Might be wishful thinking, but the only country that has content for now is Germany. It's led by Speer's son, who's more of a puppet figure than anything. And overall, this point in the timeline is much less dark than the 1960s. Like, Germany's faction has weakened somewhat. Kind of. I guess Finland and Sweden are in it now. Sweden is a democracy, isn't it? Well, I guess they don't really have much of a choice, but this is the new variation of the European Union, I guess. But overall, things are better. There's no crazy Burgundy that's trying to destroy the world, so that instantly makes things a lot better. And I should mention, this isn't an official TNO mod as far as I'm aware, so this isn't the canon ending to TNO, so don't let this ruin TNO if that matters a lot to you. This is a fan's idea of what would be the canon conclusion to things. And there's not much that has changed outside of stuff that usually happens in TNO, like Africa changing sides, Italy becoming democratic. The only really major world change is the Japanese empire falling, which isn't a thing that can happen in TNO yet. Well, besides China changing hands. Also, there's the fun ancient Windows computer UI. I think it's kind of cute, but I'm sure it's not for everybody. Some people were complaining about text that's not readable. I haven't seen any text that's not readable, but oh well. Yeah, I don't know if this window is gonna close. Oh, you just have to open that up. Okay. So research is broken, but we will still produce stuff. I don't think it will matter that much. I don't think there's going to be any sort of conflict that we will have to worry about. And yeah, I see why they had Dick Cheney as president. They had to make this one joke, so they decided the president based on this one joke, which is kind of nice. You have Richard Nixon in the regular TNO, and then you have to have Dick Cheney in a new Millennium TNO. And so the party is currently split into 3 factions: the people who believe in the old way, the reformists, and then the majority centrists, more centered around Speer's thought. But again, as far as I'm aware, I don't think this reflects the official TNO lore for what's canon or not. I don't think anything is technically canon for TNO. There's a chance that Tabaritsky's canon, but I've heard a lot of random things said about TNO lore, so I don't trust it. And this is what I like to see: influence mechanics, just like Millennium Dawn. I don't think that the new Millennium is going to have the same flaw where you can puppet anybody of your ideology, but I still think we need to influence America a bit. We'll just click this button a few more times. Yeah, that's good. Kinda sad to see the OFN hasn't really expanded that much. Not really at all. I'd have thought at least the UK would have joined them, but for some reason the Queen directly leads this liberal democracy. This may just be a placeholder, I'm guessing, because this doesn't really make sense. Because in TNO, the Queen is in exile in Canada, so I don't know why they would reform into a liberal democracy and the Queen would return and not be part of the OFN. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of an agreed neutrality thing with the Euro Pact. Either way, time to move on. In classic TNO fashion, before we could finish our focus tree, there was an attack in Germania by Burgundians, and we must now go down a different route to deal with them. Apparently they're already going back to their old ways. And silence from Burgundy, this can not be good. At the very least, we've taken these away, so they can only be so much of a threat. But I wouldn't be surprised if in these demilitarized states there is some sort of uprising. I guess I can bring the army over, unless it's a sort of thing where, oh, they're not even a puppet of us anymore, so we can't send anything there. Yeah, that's what I was thinking was gonna happen. Oh well, we will wait. Maybe send a few volunteers. That probably makes it more fair than just being able to send our entire army over. Oh yeah, and here's this. I didn't realize this was in here. I don't know how I missed it. Also, interestingly enough, France has both sides of Paris, which I guess makes sense considering that Burgundy, I think, went through their collapse path here, and this is the consequence of that path 30 or so years later. Oh yes, here's the famed text that's impossible to read, and here it is. Burgundy. Interesting. Yeah, I think we probably should stop this. That's probably a good idea. And this is a rather weak rebellion. I don't think they even really need our help, but we will do what we can. We also have decisions to deal with the Burgundians who attacked the capital, and decisions to deal with the protest movement, which would be interesting to negotiate with them and further reform, but I don't really think that those mechanics would be fully implemented into this mod yet, so I'm not really going to focus on that. I guess also notably, Greenland and Iceland are now free, independent countries, not just land occupied by the US military, which is good. It's surprising that in vanilla TNO it's not already that way, because in vanilla TNO they've already been occupied for 20 or so years by the US. It'd be crazy if they continued occupying them until 2000, or integrated them. Maybe for Greenland that'd be semi-realistic, but not really. Also, Italy still maintains several puppet states. I guess, yeah, they didn't really reform. They're still monarchists, kind of. I think this is just supposed to be a different variation of authoritarianism. They still control Croatia, Albania, Tunisia, and Montenegro. And East Africa somehow, by some miracle, they've held on to that. And this mod is overall very interesting. Again, I need to stress that this is a demo, so there's no guarantee that it'll be finished, and nothing has very deep content yet. Like, I think we've already reached basically the end of events and focus effects. And while I don't think the world situation is particularly interesting, if given the level of detail or even a fraction of the level of detail TNO has, there's still enough here that you could develop a situation similar to TNO. Of course, without a massive development team, that is unlikely, but it can still be a very good mod, and I look forward to what develops in the future, and I'll try to cover anything that is developed later on, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear about this mod again for another year or so. Developing content for the entire world will take a very long time. Anyways, thanks for watching. More interesting stuff to come in the future, and I'll see you all next time.